We've been telling you for years that you might not want to put all of your eggs in the basket of hypocritical Western governments that say one thing for themselves and then do another. Well, there was recently a news story about a particular citizenship by investment country that partially speaks to the need for a second citizenship, but also speaks to the need for why you shouldn't put all your faith in Western governments. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, with the channel and the company that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. Now, this is an issue that people, I think, are divided on here. Some people love the idea of Western governments, but they just want to move overseas to lower their taxes. They want to have a plan B, but they fundamentally love what the United States and other Western countries stand for. And I like some of what they stand for, but I also think that Western countries claim to stand for things that they don't often stand for. And this news article from The Guardian, of all places, is just the latest example of why I'm not putting all my faith in the Western system of government, or certainly Western countries as they operate now. Here's the headline: Turkey threatens to eject 10 Western diplomats over support for activists. You may have seen this in the news, you may have an opinion on it, but it speaks to me to some of the great hypocrisy out there, and it's about a citizenship by investment country that is Turkey. So, President Erdoğan says ambassadors from the US, Europe, and elsewhere are not welcome after calling for the freeing of Osman Kavala. The Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, has said that he's ordered the foreign ministry of Turkey to declare 10 ambassadors from Western countries persona non grata for calling for the release of philanthropist Osman Kavala. Kavala has been in prison for 4 years, charged with financing nationwide protests in 2013 with involvement in a failed coup in 2016. He denies the charges. In a joint statement on October 18th, the ambassadors of Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Sweden, and the US called for a just and speedy resolution to Kavala's case and for his quote-unquote urgent release. They were summoned by the foreign ministry, which called the statement irresponsible. To which the president said, "I gave the necessary order to our foreign minister and said what must be done. These 10 ambassadors must be declared persona non grata at once, immediately, and they will know and understand Turkey. The day they do not know and understand Turkey, they will leave," he said to cheers from a crowd in the northwestern city of Eskişehir. And so you may agree with this, you may not agree with this. Certainly seems like some politicking, saying things that the crowd wants to hear. That's pretty standard anywhere. And then the article goes on to talk about the various ambassadors and the embassies, and some are pushing back, some say they haven't heard anything, some did not respond, and then it goes on and on and on. Now, what's interesting is the Western world is all up in arms about this. Certainly relations, according to the media, between the West and Turkey have been fracturing. What's interesting is I recently interviewed Jim Rogers, and Jim Rogers, in his book, I think it was Adventure Capitalist, said almost 20 years ago, he said Turkey is going to become a more and more necessary, self-supporting, important country that at one point wanted to be in the EU. Now the EU should want it. And certainly that's maybe not the case, but Turkey has built a manufacturing base. I mean, certainly, there are some things that have gone poorly for Turkey, but if you look at, 20 years from now, what's the outlook for Turkey? I would say that the outlook is more positive than negative. That's simply my opinion. And so, these relations are potentially fracturing. You had a couple of years ago, the US and Turkey had a spat where you simply couldn't get into Turkey as an American. So thank goodness for second passports. If you had to get into Turkey, you could go in as a non-US citizen. And I think I had renounced by that point, but I did just that. And so Western countries, which Turkey is increasingly getting frustrated with, the West is increasingly getting frustrated with Turkey, they will, at a whim, have multimillionaires come in and apply for visas and reject them for no reason at all. I've had a couple different clients from Eastern Europe who have applied for US visas on multiple occasions, Australian visas, which probably are the one visa harder to get for any country of significance than the United States, were rejected there multiple times. They said, "Oh yeah, we were also rejected for New Zealand." I said, "Why?" They said, "Oh, because we were rejected by Australia. It's a de facto rejection." And these people are multimillionaires. They have a family, they have a home, they have no reason to stay in those countries. They don't want to get a job in those countries. But because someone there didn't like them, they got rejected, and that happens all the time. There's great discretion at who gets visas. And there's been discussion in Western newspapers for is free and open, and we love freedom of speech. You don't have that in those other countries. For as much as the West loves to lambaste other countries for not having freedom of speech, there have been discussions. Every time some guy who's a little controversial wants to come and give a speech in Canada, some of these people of the quote-unquote alt-right have tried to go to New Zealand and Australia, and there's been like a discussion in the media and in the government where, sometimes they did say, hey, listen, it's not our business, we're going to let them come in. Other times they've said, no, we don't want them to come in. I remember being in the broadcasting business over a decade ago where the talk radio host Michael Savage was put on the banned list in the United Kingdom. He can't come into the UK for fomenting hate speech. It was a list with terrorists and murderers and all that. And certainly Michael Savage had a very controversial show. But for the Western world that claims that it's all about freedom of speech, do I think Norway is about freedom of speech? Yeah, I think Norway and Denmark and Sweden and the Netherlands probably much more on the ball. Some of these European countries may not agree with them on tax policy. I'd say that they're probably much more able to make this claim with a straight face. The United States, New Zealand, are you freaking kidding me? Really? I mean, these are places where they outright reject people for all kinds of things. Simply because, okay, listen, if you want to say you had a DUI, you were driving drunk, you can't come in, that's what Canada and the US do. All right, fine, you've got a criminal record, fine, we don't want you to come in, but you are going to say something that we don't like, and therefore we're not going to issue you a visa. Or heck, you know what, we just don't like the way you look, you Ukrainian dude, we're not letting you come to our country, even though you have millions of dollars, because we said so, and we get off on that. And so, whether you agree with what Turkey is doing or not, I don't know that a lot of these Western countries have a leg to stand on in saying, who are they to do this? This is ridiculous. Now, I'm not a diplomat, right? So I don't exactly know how it works. I know of people who have been declared persona non grata. I know of people who have been removed from the diplomatic corps. It's an interesting business to work in. But, this is something where, you're there, the country gets to choose who's there. The US and the UK, they do it all the time. Now you can say the reasons that the UK and the US and other countries like those expel diplomats, those are normal, those are rational, those are reasonable. But you see, the very point of what we talk about here is we have to have a fair playing field. If you want to go where you're treated best, if you want to truly experience all the world has to offer, you have to stop making excuses for where you're from, as if your country does everything that's wonderful and great and they don't make a bad decision and everything is just amazing. Again, listen, I think the Norways of the world are probably more in that camp. You think the US isn't making decisions just to be a jerk to people because it's in their financial interest, because it's in the interest of whatever the thing is, petty interests, military industrial, whatever the case may be. The US is not a perfect actor. The West is not. No country is a perfect actor. And so we have to look at things as a level playing field where Turkey has the right to do that. Now, what does this mean about citizenship by investment? Well, I've always told people, if you are an American, for example, and you were looking for a second citizenship, Turkey is going to allow you to do that with less sunk costs, lower costs. You can make an investment rather than a donation, which you do in the Caribbean. It's worth considering. What I tell people is, it is a real country. It has issues like this. It is not an island that is out of all the spats of geopolitics. And so if you want to have a second citizenship in another real country that has embassies, that has a good passport for travel outside of the West, which Turkey does, then that's worth considering. If you want to be removed from all of this, people getting kicked out and all the drama, then you probably don't want to be in any kind of real country because they get into these kind of scuffles, and you probably want to go to a Caribbean country. But I do think it is worth looking at the fact that having a residence permit or citizenship in some country that is not entirely Western aligned could be an uncorrelated passport to have in your portfolio. It may not be the worst thing to have. Now, I've been on record saying, I would not take an Iranian citizenship if it were offered to me. Nothing against Iran, but it's just way too much drama. And so you can figure out where your line in the sand is. But, the world, both economically and in many other ways, is moving back towards the east. Power started in the east, it moved westward for a long time. Now that center of gravity in the world is heading back to the east. Now, you may like that, you may not. I think if you want to be a pragmatic person in business and in life, you can't entirely focus on what it is that you like. Turkey's citizenship for some people may play a role in their passport portfolio. For others, it may not. But what I find amazing is how these countries get to, string up their own causes. And if you don't agree with that cause, you're a terrorist, right? I remember I learned this when I first went to Malaysia. I'm not taking sides here, but everyone in Malaysia, for the most part, supports Palestine. And coming from the U.S., where everything is Israel, for the most part, that was pretty interesting. It caused me to at least sit down and think, okay, what do I believe? And I'm not saying it caused me to change sides, but what is it that I believe about this issue? Because it's not just one side being blasted, and if you don't agree, you're the world's worst person. It really caused me to think, hey, here are nice people in Malaysia. They have serious beliefs. They can articulate their beliefs, and they are on the opposite side of the country where I'm from. And yet, if you do that in some of these Western countries, you're with the terrorists. Are you? I mean, probably not in all cases. And so you have to, again, have that level playing field if you want to entirely go where you're treated best, because otherwise you're going to push away opportunities based on saying, oh, no, that country's worse. Well, to me, this is just another small example of the West getting their feathers all ruffled over something that they would do and then blame the other side. And why doesn't it work both ways? Is it really because one country is amazing and untouchable and one country is pure, unadulterated evil? Probably not. Probably not that simple. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.